I was having a conversation last night with a friend of mine. Now, this friend does a lot of work with CEOs and CIOs and other C-level executives. And he's heard a lot of complaints from those individuals that candidates are difficult to find, that the right candidates, that the best candidates are difficult to find. And as we were talking, I shared with him my experience, which is that most of the time, maybe even up to 90% of the time, the difficulty is not how many candidates there are, but how you treat the candidates that you have. And there is one very specific thing that you can do, probably the most powerful, most important thing that you can do to make sure that you get good candidates. And that is to say no. And let me explain to you what happens when you don't say no so that you can start to see what the logic is there. When you don't say no to a candidate, a lot of times what happens is you don't say yes. So let's say you interview a candidate and you sort of like them and you're not sure if they're going to be right for the job, but you don't want to lose them, right? Just in case, so they go on hold. Now, the problem with putting candidates on hold is that the communications start to become complicated, poor. The candidates start to feel that you're not really that interested in them. And most importantly, it starts to burn the time of your recruiters that could be spent looking for the right candidate. And then what ends up happening, if you put enough candidates on hold, you end up with a backed up process. And since the recruiter doesn't feel the urgency because there's a backed up process, or they don't know if they're going to go through, they start to slack off. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. You see that there are 10 people in process, 5 of them are on hold, let's say, and the other 5 are, maybe they're not as certain, but they think that they might be good. They kind of say, well, let's let this process play itself out, and then we'll go out and find more candidates. However, if you say no to candidates, you won't have that problem. The recruiters will be under pressure to produce more and more candidates, and then the likelihood of getting a good candidate is going to increase. Now, if you're a recruiter, what do you do with this knowledge? Because you don't want to just stay there and say, well, everybody's on hold. If you're a good recruiter, you want to figure out how to get the best candidates and not spend your time managing some kind of a candidate hold pipeline. So what can you do? You want to try to get an answer, even force an answer. And that means either explaining what I just described in this video to a hiring manager, or it could mean doing something a little more aggressive. Like if a hiring manager says, well, let's put this candidate on hold. You might say, okay, I understand that this isn't a candidate that's really great, so you're probably not going to hire this person. Why don't we just take them out of the process altogether and say no? Okay, that's one way to do it. If that's not working, then you might try, well, I'll tell you what, why don't we say no for now so we can let the candidate go and preserve the relationship with that candidate, because they're going to feel like you're treating them with a straight answer directly, right? Not keeping them on hold and playing games. So we'll say no to the candidate for now. And then what we'll do is, if there is an interest in the future, I will call that person up, right? This is the recruiter speaking. And I will see if I can interest them again, because I will have a relationship with that person based on giving them clear feedback up front and being honest with them and telling them no. And then the final thing, and this really is in the recruiter's court, is to just take it on yourself and say no. You run the risk of upsetting the hiring manager possibly, but it may be best, because it will free up your schedule, your time to actually be able to go out and look for the good candidate, in which case the hiring manager will be pleased in the end. If you would like more tips like this, subscribe to this channel. And if you would like to learn about the 15 questions that you need to ask to conduct an effective search. Basically, it's about viewing hiring as a conversation. If you want those 15 questions in order to enable you to have that conversation, please download our free ebook.